Hello and welcome to the Profitable Coach Podcast. I'm your host, Kimberly Rich, and as the founder of the Bold Life Movement and a fellow coach for more than 7 years, I know the challenges that many of you face when launching or growing your coaching business. And I'm here to pull back the curtain on the coaching industry and help you overcome roadblocks to make the impact you were born to make. Each week, I'll be interviewing successful coaches from every corner of the industry to share exactly how they have managed to generate massive impact and income. From strategy to psychology, we cover it all. This show is presented to you by Transformation Academy, a global marketplace of courses and coaching certifications. So whether you are already part of our epic community or you're brand new to this show, if you're ready to learn what it takes to turn your passion for service into a profitable business, then keep listening. You are in the right place. Welcome back to the Profitable Coach Podcast. This is episode 60 with Dan Woerheide. Dan is a former military serviceman turned coach. And in today's episode, we talk about how he shifted from one very distinct industry of service to another. And we focus on all the different communities that he placed himself in to really learn how to be a leader in a new arena and the power that comes from putting yourself in the ring with like-minded people, with people who are a couple steps ahead of you, and the necessary mental shifts that you need to make along the way. So if these are things that you are still struggling with, like how do I choose my pricing? How do I shift out of imposter syndrome? What do I do when I feel lonely? Then today's episode is for you. And stay tuned till the end of the episode because we have a very special offer for all of our brand new TA community members. Welcome back to the Profitable Coach Podcast. Today I have with me fellow TA trainer and coach Dan Woerheide. Dan, thanks so much for joining me.
Hey, thank you, Kimberly. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
Yeah, I was chatting with Dan on a recent trainer call, and it just seemed like he had such a breadth of experience being in the coaching industry. He's been doing this off and on for decades. And I was like, I want to have you on the show. I think that you have some wisdom that our new coaches could really learn from. So if you would be so kind, Dan, take us back. How did you even get involved in coaching?
Oh, man. So I think what started our conversation is probably the best place to start. I answered your question, how long have I been coaching, with what I think is often forgotten. And really, when I look back, I've been coaching most of my adult life in some shape or form. I coached and mentored and trained people throughout a career in the military. And even prior to that, leading people in different organizations. So I managed a branch of an industrial supply company and had a few people, salespeople that worked for me, and coaching and training and mentoring them until they either, moved up or moved on to something new. And then just carried on. And then I think officially in 2010 is when I actually got my first coaching certification, if you will, outside of the military. It was personal financial coaching. And if you're familiar, it was with Ramsey Solutions at the time. And then I've just pursued my own efforts beyond that, leading to leaving my career, transitioning from my career in the military in 2018.
And what about this work calls to you?
That's a great question. You stumped me here for a second. But there's a lot of things. I just love being able to see the look in people's eyes, sometimes with tears, when they have that breakthrough and that aha and that, oh my gosh, I really can do whatever it is that they were challenged with or facing, thinking that they weren't good enough, or it's just any number of things, but really it's those moments that continue to draw to me. I love helping people. I love serving. And so being able to serve other people and enjoy my work and have, the freedom and the flexibility that I don't have to go to an office every day and punch a clock or report to someone. It has its downsides, of course, but that's really, those pieces are, I think, what calls to me the most.
Yeah. So two things you said really stood out to me. One is enjoying the work. I think that it can be really easy when we're starting a new venture to forget this is supposed to be fun. So whenever people are like, in their head about what should my niche be? What should I do? Where should I market? I'm like, who do you want to help in a way that feels so fun and authentic to you? What would bring you joy and also give you the excitement to keep showing up? That's step one. And then I love what you said about the freedom and flexibility to work at home and that there are pros and cons to that. I have the story that being a coach can actually be kind of isolating if we're not intentional about it. Can you speak to that at all?
Oh, well, yes. So in fact, it's funny because we chatted just prior to this call or just prior to our recording about this in particular. And community is one thing that resonates deeply with me. I just had a conversation a week ago because I felt like I was sort of in a rut, and it really came down to isolation. And his one answer to me was, upgrade your peer group. You've got to surround yourself. You've got to get engaged with those networking groups or other people who are doing something similar, whether you're in a mastermind or group sessions, or you're running a mastermind or group sessions. You've got to be in community with other people.
Yeah, 100%. What are some different communities that you've been a part of over the years, and what were the benefits that you got from those?
I'll tell you what. So 48 Days to the Work and Life You Love, Dan Miller, may he rest in peace. He passed January of this year, but Dan Miller was a wonderful, wonderful man and a wonderful leader. And he built a thriving community of people who were aspiring entrepreneurs or entrepreneurs, leading each other in different challenges and through career transitions. And that group, just being a part of it and seeing the people thriving in different ways was tremendous. And being able to participate, I was asked to lead several different small groups throughout the years in that community. And that was a lot of fun. Again, encouraging and inspiring others and seeing the progress in their journeys. Those things are tremendous. So that's one big one. I have been a part of Cliff Ravenscraft's community, not in his masterminds, but in his group coaching sessions. And I've seen some of the work from the inside there, and I really enjoy hanging out with some of those people. And I've been in other community. There was a podcasting membership community I was a part of when I first started wanting to create a podcast, and I was looking at all the things, and I'm a very technical person. I love problem solving tech. But when it came to podcasting, for some reason, I was just like, oh my goodness, what do I do? So I joined a membership community from a lady, Crystal Profit, wonderful resource for podcasting. And I joined her community and learned a ton about podcasting and started my podcast. There's so many. More recently, Empowered Podcasting is a community that I've been part of and participating in regularly. They have a group on Facebook, and we meet pretty much every weekday on Clubhouse live. They also record it as a podcast. So that community, just encouraging and inspiring, not just related to podcasting, but other challenges or other things going on in the world. Right now, the guy that runs or started that and kind of leads those efforts is in North Carolina, supporting friends, family, and others in the wake of Helene, the hurricane that passed at this recording, just over a week ago. So we do a lot of things there, and community is just wildly important.
Yeah.
And
What
TA.
TA is a great community.
TA.
So a couple of things that you said stood out to me. One is being a part of Dan Miller's group and having the opportunity to step up as a leader. I think one of the missed value adds that we can get when we join communities is the experience to kind of own our desire to serve and practice serving and practice being seen as a supportive leader in someone else's community. And that can give us the confidence to actually go be a leader in our own community. And we're like, oh, people rely on me. People defer to me. I'm valuable here. I am needed. I am of service. So that's really important. And I see a lot of TA students stepping up in our Impact Collective, our brand new community that we launched, and really like paving the way for what this community can be in the future. We have something called the Wall of Love, which is this testimonial share wall. And we had over 100 testimonials in the first month, which was just the beta alone. So it's just a testament to how powerful and transformative it can be when we put ourselves in the ring with like-minded individuals who have similar goals and like want to see us succeed. So that was fun.
That. I love that wall idea. When I was in the military, I was a master resiliency trainer towards the last few years of my career. And one of the things we would do at the beginning of a training for new trainers was more like a values wall. We would put up, these sheets on the walls, and they would go over and put up their top values. So very similar, not quite testimonial based, but it still was inspiring and encouraging, and then it gave them something to focus on throughout the training. So I love that. And I told you I have yet to jump into the Impact Collective community, but I do plan to see what's going on over there. I hear good things.
Yeah, it's a great spot. I love this idea of sharing our visions and sharing our goals, sharing our values. This is something that I definitely get a lot of value from the year-long mastermind that I'm in. Watching the questions that other women post and then the support that they receive, I'm more than not, I'm like, wow, I really needed to hear that today. I didn't ask the question for whatever reason. I wasn't motivated to put myself out there, but holy crap, I needed that coaching today. And then it completely shifts the way I go show up in my day-to-day because I plugged into that community. And I think that that's like a really big theme for me in the next 12 months is like, where am I plugging into and where am I creating containers for my clients to plug into? So I'm offering this for any coaches listening to ask yourselves, where am I plugging into on the days that I forget my power, or I forget my why? And what kind of spaces or offerings am I cultivating for my potential clients to come plug into, right? Build it and they will come. I think that the more we lean into, if we're familiar with that movie quote, the more we lean into owning what it is that we want to offer other people for them to come plug into, then the quicker they will come and do that.
Yes. And I want to point out something there. It's come up in this conversation twice now. Not directly, but indirectly. And that's, I think, especially for people who are new to the business of coaching. I want to be specific in my language because I hear all the time, and maybe it's becoming more of a pet peeve of mine, but I hear all the time, hey, I'm a new coach. Where do I start? What do I do? How do I gain confidence? And it's like, wait a minute. You might be new to the business of coaching, but just as a reminder, like you've just indicated, sometimes we just need little reminders. It doesn't matter what it's related to, but we might need that. And for coaches who are new to the business of coaching, you're not new to the world. You're not new to experiences that you bring with you. Just because now you've got a life coaching certification or whatever avenue you've chosen for coaching, and you've launched your business, hung out your shingle, etc., you're not bringing nothing to the table. You're coming to the table fully equipped to go out and serve people. There's a reason you chose to do that. Don't forget those things.
Yeah, 100%. My last guest, Shannon Clark, she was like, no one has the same level of experience that you've had for the past 30 something, 40 something, 50 something years. So don't discount that, right? Like that matters. The hours you've spent moving through hard times, the money you've spent learning different things, the counseling you've been through, all of that is useful. And I think it's really easy to forget that when we get caught up in like the business side of coaching.
May I share something that I found really impactful and helpful more recently? And it was, I've heard it before, I've done it before, but this time it was different because of the way it was presented, but it was an inventory. I did an inventory. Gosh, if I were to pull it up, it's probably 3 or 4 pages long of all of the things. And the reason it came up, this question was not posed to me, but to a fellow coach. And it was, oh my gosh, who are you to charge that much? And he said, admittedly, it caused him to pause. He could have responded to that question pretty quickly, but he stopped to think about it. And then he took pause. He's like, wait a minute. Yeah, who am I? Let me list who I am. And he went and just did this inventory. And I was like, that is a wonderful approach to come back and say, this is who I am.
And also, who am I not to charge this?
Yeah, exactly. So that inventory just kind of really opened my eyes from that perspective this time. So I went back and did it, and it's not even done. It's just like, oh my gosh, there's so much.
Yeah, I think that, one of the things I teach inside Quantum Leap and that I've been teaching inside the Bold Life Movement, my own business for years now, is this idea of a manifesto. And I think that I'm such a visual person. I'm like, oh, I wonder if I could create a manifesto that is just all the things I've studied, I've experienced, I've been through, I've taught, etc. So there's just this huge, visual representation of this is all that you're getting and more. If you want to see it, like if you want to be privy to all these different things and you want to waste less time, less money than I've wasted or spent is a better word because I value my investments. Come check this out.
I relate to that last piece, right? Even if it felt wasted at the time, it's definitely an investment that's been well spent because you've learned something. Totally. And you can share that and prevent people from making those same investments.
Yeah. So, excuse me. This week inside Quantum Leap, which is our boot camp at TA, our business boot camp for coaches, we were talking about the steps you can take to more clearly and more intentionally choose your pricing. I'm curious how you've approached pricing your offers in the past.
Oh, wow. I've done it all. I've done way too inexpensive or cheap, however you want to look at that. I prefer inexpensive because there's definitely value to be gained, I believe, from spending time with me or with other people for me. And, I burnt myself out with how am I going to grow or scale any of this with the number of calls I have to make or take, get scheduled versus the amount of income that I'm asking people to pay. And I've gone the other side where I just decided I was going to go all in and charge way too much. And
what is too much?
Too much.
What validates a too much word?
You know what? That's a great question because it was too much for what people I was in community with were willing to pay at the moment.
Such a good distinguishing factor because for someone else in a different income bracket, a different community, different values, that might have felt like not enough.
Yes. And it's very true. I mean, I know that there's coaches out there who are, over $100,000 to spend, 2 hours with them. The ultimate coach group on Facebook is another community I've been plugged into for some time, and Steve charges quite a lot to spend time with him, and he requires he goes to his house. You go to his house in Arizona.
Wow.
So there, what is too much? You're right, and for the right people, that number can be ambiguous. So for me at the time, yes, it was too much, and I've scaled back a bit, and I just continue to play with what's comfortable for me. I think the biggest thing is looking at a different inventory. It's another tool that I've gotten from Cliff Ravenscraft actually was building a list of 1 through 50 things, item 1 through 50 that I want without the thought of, is it possible? Or, what does it take to achieve those? It's here's the things that I want. And then I have to look at if those are the things that I want, what kind of income am I going to need to generate in my business to have that kind of lifestyle?
Yeah, totally. I love
falling in line with that. Sorry.
I love Benjamin Hardy. Are you familiar with his work? Mm-hmm. Yeah, his book 10X is easier than 2X. He talks about the difference between operating from a place of need, which is scarcity, and operating from a place of want, which is so much more abundant and free and doesn't need to be justified. I need this because if I don't have it, I can't pay rent, I can't feed my kids, I can't go on this trip, etc. Versus I want it simply for the sake of wanting it. It brings me joy. I'm alive. I'm allowed to want joy. And I think this list that you just described fits in that perfectly and can invite the listeners to be in a place of dreaming and imagining and less strategy, more in the heart and less in the head, because our wants typically don't come from the head. They come from like some other place.
So true. But I have a question for you.
Sure.
So on that same note, right, when you're talking to, you work with a lot of newer coaches, mm-hmm. new to the business of coaching. And one of the things that I tell people, and I'm curious your approach, is if you're coming from a place of need and scarcity, you need to go get a job that's going to pay for those things that you need, resources that you must have, food. You know, you kind of mentioned you're not going to eat. Well, if that's the case, then you might want to put coaching on the side or as a side gig. Don't jump in just yet. Feet first. Mm-hmm. Go get something that's going to pay the bills and prepare you as you build that. Would you agree with that? Or are you teaching something different? Okay. I was just curious.
No, I totally agree. One of my favorite authors, Elizabeth Gilbert, she talks about how she didn't quit her it was a business that she owned, actually a storefront. She didn't quit working at that storefront until Eat, Pray, Love, one of her most famous books, was not just a New York Times bestseller, but I think had even gotten the movie rights signed over for Julia Roberts to play her in the movie. So she was, by all, intents and purposes, very, very successful as a writer before she quit her job. Yeah. And I tell my students all the time, don't try and coach, don't try and give from a place of lack, because it's just messy energetically. It's much harder to get clients. And I think having your bases covered is super crucial. And there are so many jobs out there that you can take which support your growth as a coach. Learn skills that are relevant to entrepreneurship, content creation, teaching, creating courses, etc. So the idea that like everything is figure outable, that's a Marie Forleo term, always sits with me. And number one should always be having your bases covered.
Absolutely. Yeah, I was curious. I think that's super important because I've also made that mistake before.
For sure. Oh, same. Totally. Yeah, I'm curious what kinds of offerings you've had on the table or in your product suite over the years.
So I have facilitated a mastermind. Of course, there's one-on-one coaching. I have toyed with group coaching, although I haven't launched anything related to group coaching specifically. Beyond going back into the 48 Days community, I did some group coaching style things there. What else? So even before that, so I found, you're familiar with the golden handcuffs and your zone of genius versus your zone of expertise.
Yes.
Yeah. So I was in a place where I had been a StoryBrand guide previously. I was certified with StoryBrand. And what I found there is I didn't really want to run a creative agency of any shape or form. Now, copywriting, I can do copywriting. It's not my favorite thing to do, but I'm pretty good at those things. What I found is, as I mentioned earlier, I'm really good at technical problem solving. And people who are great at designing pretty stuff, usually the tech turns their stomach. So I found a place there where I was serving other StoryBrand guides for several years, providing a lot of different technical support on the back end of websites and email marketing systems and other programs to help them make all the pieces work.
Mm.
And I enjoyed that. So that is a service offering that I've had on the table, is why I bring it up, is that I was doing essentially tech support or project management on the tech side, putting all those pieces together and plugging in the emails so that all they had to do was write and make them pretty. And I'd go set them up, make sure that they went out when they were supposed to, those types of things. Now I do offer, if asked, consulting on that, but I don't really want to spend my time in the systems doing the work.
How do you differentiate between consulting versus coaching?
Consulting would be more like advising. If you want to come to me and talk about how to set your email marketing system up, and you want to talk to me about reviewing copy and how you might be able to improve your email marketing efforts, as an example, that I can advise you on all day. It doesn't, for me, doesn't get into the realm of coaching unless we start talking about, hey, I'm really stuck here. What do you suggest? Well, okay, that just triggered my thought process in a different place. It's, what do you mean stuck? Tell me more about that and what's behind that, right? That gets into the coaching side of the world for me.
And if you had some like high level email marketing advice for people who are wanting to grow their email list, they're new to the entrepreneurial side of coaching, what would you tell them?
I would tell them just send emails to people. But, from a marketing perspective, if you have something that you can give away, i.e., people get challenged because they're like, okay, well, how do I create, a 1-page or 2-page ebook type thing, or, 10 lessons on whatever. They get challenged on the making it pretty side of things. Well, Canva's a great tool. It's really simple to use. They've got a ton of free templates as a side note, but I would say, video, you can do a 1, 2, 30-minute video on a specific topic that you want to educate and inspire others on. And people can request that in exchange for their email address and then email them. But I tend to lean towards keep it brief, keep it on topic, keep it to the point. And when it comes to delivery of said product, be very brief and, hey, here's the product we promised you. Over the next few days, you might see a couple more emails on me. I hope you'll take a look.
I love that. So setting the expectations ahead of time, kind of like you would in a marketing webinar when you ask the permission to let them know how they can get more. Yeah,
absolutely. Or coaching. I don't start coaching someone until I have specific illicit permission.
Yeah,
I open all my calls with several things, and one of them is, do I have permission to coach
you? And what is your favorite way to filter clients, to onboard them? Are you the discovery call guy? Like, what's your process there?
Yeah. So I have done all of those things. I've done the discovery calls. I've done the, 15-minute assessments or whatever they might be. I've done the applications and all kinds of things. My favorite approach comes from a book called The Prosperous Coach, written by Steve Chandler and Rich Lipton. And it is very simply, I give people a full-on coaching session, 90 minutes with me. That allows me to see who they are, how they show up, and gives me some indications of who they are, what they're going to do. Are they going to be action takers? Are they going to be someone I would enjoy working with? And that really is my filter. I don't like the business of people calling me or emailing me asking, "Oh, tell me why I should work with you." No, that just feels icky to me. So I'd much rather spend my time serving you. And if at the end of that, we both agree that we'd like to explore that further, then we can have a conversation.
I love that. I also think that and this I teach inside Quantum Leap and some of our other programs, having a filter even before the phone call, an intake form of sorts that you can glean pretty quickly. Some of the verbiage people use, are they empowered? Are they in a victim mindset? Scale of 1 to 10, how committed are you to making this shift in your life right now, or to hiring a coach? If they're at a 2, it might not be worth 90 minutes of your time to get on the phone with them. So really, having a permission slip to filter people and to be a no to them. And this goes back to what we were talking about, having your needs, your basic needs met outside of coaching, so that you're never bringing on clients that you don't actually want to work with simply because you need the money. It's not a good feeling.
Yeah, done that too. Gosh.
Oh, same. I've done it all.
I do have an application that I ask people to complete. And for the most part, I guess I just haven't seen one come in that, alerted me to, this is definitely not someone I'm going to spend my time with. But I've known after those 90 minutes that this is someone I'm not going to continue to spend my time with.
How do you segue at that point? I get this question a lot inside of our programs.
It really is a matter of if I invite them to another session or not. Because most of the time I will promise them that we won't even talk about pricing or what it looks like to work with me beyond that first session in the first session. So we are going to schedule a second session to discuss those things anyway, if I get to the point. So I like to close all of my sessions with 2 key things. And it's really, hey, what are the 1, 2, or 3, insights that you're taking away from our time together today? That gets them to verbalize what it is, that the value they're receiving, gives me words that I can use in marketing language. It also, gives me an indication that, yes, this has been valuable for both of us, because I already know at that point if it was valuable for me. And then the next one is, okay, based on that, what are the next actions, 1, 2, or 3 action steps you're going to take over the next couple of weeks as a result of those insights? And those action steps are a great segue to a follow-up invitation. Hey, well, that's wonderful. Would it be okay for us to check back in the next 2 or 3 weeks, have another session, my gift to you? And again, this directly following the Prosperous Coach methodology, if you will, is that inviting them to that second session to check in on those action steps, what challenges may have come up over that. And towards the end of that one, or once we get through the major hurdles at the beginning of that session, there may be an opportunity then to open the door and say, hey, would it be okay with you if we pause right here, take a different approach for a second, shift into a different focus, however you want to say it? And, is there an interest in talking about what it looks like to continue to do this work with me? And if not, that's okay.
Beautiful. I'm curious what mindset shifts you've had to make inside yourself over the years to become a better coach, to become a more profitable coach, and really own that identity.
Wow. That's a good question. That's a strong question, I guess it's a better way. Mindset shifts, right? So the question of when I first started my venture in the financial coaching side of things, I was listening to all the other coaches who, if you go out there, you can find a ton of people. They're still saying the same things. It's, you've got to do the things this way. And I've always had this desire. Maybe it's a flaw. I'm not sure. I embrace it, and it's to disrupt the status quo. Just because everyone is doing it that way, does it mean that that's really how things are done? So that's one big one, is breaking those barriers of you have to do a $20 or 20-minute introductory call, or you have to charge this much because you're still brand new to the world of coaching, or all of those things were difficult. There's another one, though, is, my mindset around money and trading dollars for time. Not productive if you want to be even more profitable as a coach. You have to
100%.
understand that there's a tremendous amount of value that you bring to the table. And it took me a while to accept that. So that kind of goes hand in hand with, am I good enough? And that's where I was going. When I first started out, it was like beating my head against the wall. It felt like, because I was doing all the things and it just wasn't producing. And if it was producing, it wasn't producing recurring like I wanted it to, because I wanted to build that business. And so that question came up, is this even what I want to be doing? Is it the right thing to be doing? Am I good enough to be doing it? Those are definitely have been there.
Was there a tipping point for you where you stopped feeling as much imposter syndrome and as much spinning of the wheels?
I can't pinpoint it, but yes, I would definitely say that when I started turning the mirror back on myself and doing those inventories and doing that kind of hard work, I'm never shied away from hard work, but I mentioned I've had a career in the military. I was in the Army for nearly 20 years, not quite. And if anyone wants to talk to me about that, I'm open to a conversation, but all honorable. We'll leave that. I've lived life a certain way. I was raised in a military family. And so it wasn't common for me to look inward and say, okay, why am I even asking this question? What's coming up? And so that was the turning point. When I started looking at those inventories and going, man, I've done all of these things and I bring a lot of value to the table. And I've invested a ton of money on lessons and experiences and tools and resources that can benefit so many people. That's when I really started to realize that, this is exactly where I want to be. You know what? I'll back up. I can pinpoint one big moment. I was in another community, a copywriting community with Ray Edwards. It was in his $5 Mastermind. And I knew I don't really want to be a copywriter. I'm okay at copywriting. I might say good, but it's not something I really love. And I knew that. And I'm in the room, right, in this mastermind with a bunch of people who are great at those things. They want to be wonderful copywriters, and they are, in my opinion. Man, they're some of the best in the world. So I'm in this room and we're having all these challenges, and I always be vulnerable. Vulnerability, I learned a couple of years ago, was really key in gaining the most from these communities for me. If I wasn't willing to be vulnerable, I can't get nearly as much from that community as I could if I am. So Ray Edwards on one of those calls said, Dan, why aren't you charging for that? And it was related to coaching. I was doing all of this marketing technical work. So I was doing all this marketing technical work, the golden handcuffs piece, because I was making great money. I just knew I didn't absolutely love it. And I was trying to figure out how to enhance that business and do more of that by myself so that I could spend more time with these other entrepreneurs in the 48 Days community that simply didn't have the resources to pay what I wanted, where I was getting from my business. And he said, Dan, what are you doing? You should be coaching. I was like, really? So that was a big one when he pointed that out.
So sometimes it's a matter of having people in your corner to reflect back to you your worth. Because again, it's easy to forget. It's so important to have the ability to plug in for those little reminders.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. I'm curious.
That was a long-winded answer.
Oh, no, it's perfect. I'm curious if you could go back and tell your past self who had just started coaching some words of wisdom, what would it be?
Well, we talked about one, don't quit your day job or go get a day job in my case. That would be number one. Number two is trust yourself. Believe in yourself. There's going to be people out there who, if you listen to them, will discourage you. and you'll start questioning yourself. So believe in yourself, trust yourself, and do whatever it takes to be happy.
I love that. I love that. On that note, Dan, where can we go get more of you? Where can people follow you on social media or some other place that you live on the internet?
Yeah, so I'll give it all out. That's fine. Before I do, though, I want to pause really quick, Kimberly. I've listened to a bunch of your episodes, and I love what you're doing. But I just want to say that if you're listening to this right now and you also love what Kimberly is doing, just take one moment, click the share button, and share it with someone you think might benefit from one of these conversations.
Thank you, Dan.
You're most welcome. On that note, you can find me, let's start with my website, danw.us, super simple. There's an application there. If you want to explore a 90-minute conversation with me, feel free to complete it. At the bottom of that application, just tell me you heard about me from Kimberly, and I'll make sure that session is really my gift to you. No commitments or obligations. You can find me on social media, Dan Woerheide. You have to look at the spelling in the show notes.
Yeah, we'll have it all linked up.
But yeah, feel free to connect with me. Reach out to me on Facebook or on Instagram. And I'm on TikTok, but there's not a lot of coaching stuff there whatsoever. I spend a lot of time taking pictures of sunrises and sunsets on the beach. So
if you're into that sort of thing, go check it out.
Absolutely. If you want to talk to me about anything, though, feel free also to send me an email. And it's the same. It's dan@danw.us. Just mention you heard about me on Kimberly's podcast.
Awesome. Dan, thank you so much. I appreciate your transparency, your energy, and all of your insights. Thank you.
Thank you so much. This has been wonderful, and I appreciate all of that and everything I've heard from you and the way you inspire your community. So it's an honor.
Thank you. Thank you so much for tuning into episode 60 with Dan Woerheide. If you have made it to the end of the episode, then I want to reward you by inviting you to our new Impact Collective. This is the TA brand new community where we have coaches from literally all over the world coming together to practice coaching, to gather around our virtual coffee rooms and discuss so many different things that are relevant to building a coaching business. Every week we have different breakout sessions where you can meet other like-minded coaches. You can get practice being both a client, a coach, and offering feedback as an observer. You'll have monthly Q&A calls with me as your coach, where I can provide different pieces of feedback that I noticed watching these coaching sessions inside the breakout. But that's not all. We do have a special offer for you. As a podcast listener, you have earned the opportunity to join our community. This is if you're a brand new member, and get the first 3 months at 30% off. So if you head over to transformationacademy.com/impact and use the code podcast, all caps, then you will get 30% off of your first 3 months. If you like today's episode and you want to get access to all the juicy resources that we talked about, head over to profitablecoach.com/060. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I'm sending you so much love. Catch you next week.